Wreckland Run. This is a game solo only set in a post-apocalyptic world, very Mad Maxy, deserts, weird vehicles, people wearing leather like it's the 1980s. And as I said, it's only solo. You, the player, will control a driver and a vehicle, and you will have to survive 3 waves of incoming enemy vehicles. The third wave, should you last that long, will also include a boss. If you make it until the end of that scenario and you defeat the boss, usually you win the game. There may also be other victory conditions because the game is played in scenarios. Each scenario comes with unique components in an appropriate envelope. Each scenario is a chapter, so if you play them all in order, you will have an ongoing saga, and you also have a booklet here that tells you about the narrative of each of these scenarios, which I'm not going to show you at all because I don't want to spoil the experience for you. So what I'm going to exemplify here is all like fictional examples, what I'm going to show you to give you a sense of how the game plays. You're going to choose your vehicle, and each vehicle has 8 slots that are used to perform actions, and then a central slot, which also can be used to trigger the ram action. And also, importantly, is your core. This is how much damage your core can take. If damage goes through, meaning it is not absorbed by components and it goes to the core, then you add damage points there. If again it takes that much damage, is indicated there, you lose the game. And you have multiple vehicles to choose from. You also have multiple drivers. Cuddles is definitely my favorite. Then we got Arson, I also like her, and I don't play quite as often with Miller or Rudder. But again, you got a choice. You can combine vehicle with pilot, with driver, and also each vehicle has some unique upgrades, some unique parts that can be used and played on top of the printed component to make it better. Also, you can customize your vehicle by using these cards here, and these cards will go once you equip them, will go in those slots there. The game lasts. Each scenario is 6 phases, 3 wreckage phases in which you add parts to your car, in which you upgrade printed parts, and starting from the second such phase, probably you will want to remove some damage. These are the tokens used to mark damage. So we have 3 wreckage phases and then 3 runs, and the runs are the main phase of the game, meaning the battles in which you'll be surrounded by enemies and you'll be fighting against them. And the sequence is wreckage, run, wreckage, run, wreckage, run. So wreckage phase, as I said, is when you start adding stuff to your car. The scenario will tell you how many of these cards you draw from this deck in each phase, and they become available. Suppose those are the cards that I have available there. Then you will roll these dice. This is a dice-driven game. I haven't said that before. Then you can start using these dice to pay for the cards. As you can see, there are different requirements. If I want to equip that one, I need to spend 2 dice of one color or one type with one numerical result and 2 dice of another. There's going to be 4 with the same result, and so on and so forth. Different requirements, such as, for example, the total of the pips there. I can also choose to discard cards to get rerolls, so you have a little bit of control there. So after all is said and done, hopefully I will have more parts on my car. Maybe that's how my car will look after I upgraded it. Incidentally, if you use white dice to equip these cards, well, good for you. That was good. Nothing else happens. If you choose to use the red dice, you have to roll them. After you use them, you have to roll them and look on a chart in the scenario book because there may be effects that are triggered. And red dice are usually bad, so I don't want to spoil it for you, but probably those are effects you're not going to like too much. Also, these are cards representing the enemies, but they also can be used to represent wreckage, pieces of garbage. After you turn them into flaming trash, you can loot them and use them. You will start the game with a number of wreckage cards available to you. And when these cards represent wreckage, they're turned that way, and you only worry about the die indicated there. So basically you can spend the card as if it was one of these dice. If, for example, I needed to spend 3 of a kind to equip a card, I could do that by discarding this one. So that's for wreckage. And again, you start with some. How many you start with also indicates the level of difficulty that you have selected, and more will show up later. So that's for the wreckage phase, giving you a sense of what happens at that point as you are beefing up your card. Then the run starts, and the scenario will tell you how many cards are drawn from the enemy deck and where they go, the force around your card. The card has 4 sides. So actually, since you know that, you know where they're going to go, probably you will want to take that into account. And just suppose, again, this is a random fictional example, that after I draw the cards that are indicated and necessary, that's what it looks like. Now, the run has started. Again, I roll the dice. And the flow is that each turn during the run, I need to first take a red die and resolve it, and that's bad stuff. I can resolve a red die in one of 2 ways. I can just remove it from the pool, re-roll it, and check on another chart of bad stuff happening. It's not the same chart that you use to roll effects during the wreckage phase. That's it. That's just roll and see what it does. Or, if the die matches the number of at least one of the enemy cards available, and the card can still accept a die, then I can place it there. In other words, if there is a die that matches one of the available numbers, I can choose to place it there or roll it on the chart. If the number doesn't match any, then I have to roll it on the chart. If I place it on a card, it will activate that enemy card and all enemy cards that have the same number and still have slots available. In this case, for example, there's a 5 here, and there's also a 5 here that has the slot available. If I was to play a 6 here, I would only activate that card because there are no other 6s available. And if I had another 6 now, in a later phase in which I need to spend a red die, then I have to roll it on the chart because there's nowhere to place it. When you activate a card, an enemy card, it does what it says up here, which is usually to attack you. This one, for example, attacks every part in the back for 2. Other things may be a single attack, such as this one, for example, would be attack of 4. And so suppose I resolve that one, I place it there, and I take the damage, and I choose the part where it goes. Oh, these are 4 and 4, so they'll be destroyed already. Bad. So I'm going to put it there because, again, each part has that resistance there. And if it takes that much damage, it is destroyed, and that's bad because from that moment on, the attacks will go through and will be placed on the core instead. So when the enemy cards activate, they do what it says, which is usually to place damage on your card. Also, the cards that activated then move by 1 space clockwise around your card. So when you choose which the devil that they wanna attack you, there are several considerations to take into account. Of course, again, how much damage you're gonna take on that side, where that is gonna end. So after you resolve an enemy dice, finally time for you to act. And at that point, you can choose 1 to 3 white dice, or on those 1 to 3 dice, you can also spend wreckage. You can also spend wreckage for that. And the numbers that you see on the sections of your card indicate the minimum number that you need to place there to resolve that effect. So, for example, this section here will take a 3 or more. If you place a die there which is higher than the printed result, it is legal, and you get the effect indicated on top of that section. In this case, an attack of 1 going in this direction. If I was to place it, sorry, there's a 5 here, and I place a 6, it is good enough to activate that part. That's a corner piece, so actually I can choose if I want to activate it this way or that way. Just the ones in the middle only go the way they're facing. This allows me an attack against each enemy on that side. So that is if you place a die in a spot with a result that is higher than. If you place the exact result, you get the thing on top and the bonus printed in the middle, which may be an extra action, which may be improving your action, can be one of different things. And so that's how those cards work. Ideally, you will want to, as much as possible, of course, to match those things. And there are timing considerations. When you can also discard your wreckage for their value as if they were dice that you were activating, and the beauty is that it doesn't clog a spot. You can still place a natural physical die later. Also, if you have a die that really don't know what to do with, bam, you can ram with it. The ram, you place it in the ram section. Any number can go there, and it allows you to choose one of the sides and perform an attack in that direction, and the damage it causes is equal to the number of red barbed wire sections facing. So right now on this side, I am ramming for 3. That's pretty good. On this other side, my ramming power would be 2. So not bad. I like ramming. You can also place a result of a 1 or a 2 in there to manipulate your dice in case you want to reroll dice, or most often change your die result by 1. So this is the general flow of the game, which means the main run, remember, you resolve a red die, then you play 1, 2, 3 of your own dice if you still have them, and you can replace those dice with wreckage cards. Suppose I do that, then I do this other thing, then it's my enemy's turn again, and then I'm left with only 1, and I'll do something with it. One thing though is that, again, 1 red die, 1 to 3 of yours, reroll the remaining 1 red die, 1 to 3 of yours, and so on and so forth. So they give damage to you, you give damage to them, and that's the general idea. There are also actions that will allow you to repair damage, that is to remove damage tokens from your card. Those actions are most effective in between runs, that is during the wreckage phase, much less effective during the run itself, but sometimes that's what you gotta do. So you keep fighting this way until either you die because your core is taking too much damage, or there are 2 or fewer enemies around you by the time the pool of dice has been used. If that is the case, the remaining enemies are so scared of you, they leave, they regroup, and then you move on to the next wreckage phase, in which again, remember, roll dice. On deck. Again, you roll dice, you draw cards and roll dice to add parts, improve, upgrade, fix damage, and so on and so forth. And you continue like this until either your car blows up and you're per pilot with it, or you're able to defeat the boss of the scenario, or you meet maybe another victory condition depending on the scenario. Wreckland Run is a good game. It's a good solo game. I guess you could also play cooperatively if you're sharing decisions together. But I don't know, there's a lot going on. There are a lot of small decisions. I think it works better if you just take them in your head. It's a good game, can be a little bit fiddly, especially at the beginning, because there are a lot of procedures, small, tiny things that you have to remember, and they're almost like 2 different mini games, because the wreckage phase and the run phase, they work in similar but not exactly the same way, similar ways. The value of repair things changes from one phase to the other, so there's just a lot going on, which is not too bad if you're just sitting there and learning the game. What is a little bit annoying is that it could be easier to learn the game if there weren't several production problems here. The language in the rulebook is not always tight. It doesn't cover every case. You will start the game and say, okay, I got a sense. And as soon as you start, you realize there's a case that is not covered by the rules, or it hasn't been described in enough detail. For example, what happens when you place a die on an enemy car, which cars exactly activate. I had to go online and read the answer in a forum discussion on Board Game Geek. some of the language and some of the icons are not consistent. You will see some of the icons on the cards that are never referenced in the rule book. And again, reading about it, turns out that they changed their mind midway through the production. So there are just a couple of annoying things that will make learning the game unnecessarily convoluted. But the game is good. So if you are willing to put in some extra work there, the game is good. When it starts flowing, then it's a really interesting and decision-packed experience. I like the wreckage phase in which, well, you got decisions there. Usually you'll be able to get a lot of the stuff that you want because you can discard cards that you don't want to get the rerolls, and again, in my experience, I was able to get most of the stuff that I wanted. You still have to prioritize because, well, if you want everything, no, that's not going to happen. If you have humbler things, okay, these two parts, maybe the three, you can probably do that. The economy, the flexibility that you have with the wreckage cards that you can use to replace dice, that's also very good. Also, I should have mentioned, when you are using your weapons to attack the enemies or whatever game effects to attack the enemies, of course you place damage on that. And if you place more than it's needed, it's destroyed, and that's good. If you play exactly how much damage they take, it's destroyed also, but you collect the card as wreckage, so that becomes, again, an extra die that you can use. And that is a key mechanic. If you want to make it, you need to do that as much as possible. So what you have here is a game that feels pretty thematic, actually. There was so much die rolling and checking charts. I did not expect that the game would actually feel like a battle in the desert with all these enemies surrounding you. You blow them up and they inflict damage on you. It feels surprisingly thematic once you get into the mechanism, and again, the mechanics and the procedures feel more natural. But then from the point of view of the procedures and mechanics, it is still really packed with interesting decisions at each and every level, because you have to manage who is going to get attacked next, okay, which are the ones that are most dangerous, and there's this guy here that looks very dangerous. I could destroy them now, but then I don't get to collect the card. Or, well, I could destroy them, or I could just wait later. I may be able to destroy it exactly, collect the card, but that puts me in danger of being attacked by it, and bad stuff happens. So it's a really literally changing battlefield with decisions that change every time, because you're re-rolling the dice, because the enemies move, because you do not know exactly what kind of effects you're going to get from the chart. So interesting decisions every time. Which part you're going to use, where you're going to allocate your die, what it's for. You put it on a corner, you have to decide where they go. So I was pleasantly surprised, or in any case, I was pleased by the fact that once the initial investment to learn the game was made, then you really have a game that shines in terms of theme and decision and tension. Because, well, when it comes to dice, you always have that unknown element. But here you have so many little decisions all the time that I didn't feel that the game was too swingy. There are just many ways of mitigating dice, many dice. Each die can potentially do something. So you have a nice curve in which you do not know exactly what you're going to get and in what order, and that creates tension and uncertainty, but it doesn't feel that the randomness of the dice is going to dominate the experience. You got 7 chapters, so you got different scenarios, different kind of challenges, different rules and things from scenario to scenario, which of course makes for a more pleasant experience. So all in all, I'm pretty pleased with the experience of playing Wreckland Run. I wish it was easier to learn, and I think it could have been, but that's not the case. We gotta play the game that we have, not the game we wish we had. The game that we have is one that takes a while to get used to, but once you do get used to it, it's pretty fun.